Thank you. This is really nice. Thanks for setting this up, and it's very comfortable, and I'm not nervous at all. Let's see. When I drove here this morning and I was parking, parking sucks out there, and so first I tried one spot and that didn't work. And then I drove down the street and I tried another spot and I backed in and I needed to measure that I was leaving enough clearance for a driveway, but also that I wasn't ruining the car behind me, which you kind of do as a matter of course in LA anyway. But and I got out of the car to check my work and I looked at it and there was like an inch of space between me and so I did really well, and I did want to, and I just without thinking about it, and I was by myself and I did this. I did a thumbs up, which I never do. And in the moment I realized that my dad does that thumbs up. I did my dad's thumbs up, and there was even like a kind of a jingly key sound when I did it too. Like dads always have their key, you know? They always do like the dad keys. It was like that. And I realize it sort of relates to what I'm talking about a little bit today, but it was just a little bit of something to warm me up and get started talking. Also, I wrote my talk on my iPhone, and then I realized that it would be rude if I was up here looking at my iPhone the whole time, because you might think I was on Twitter or something, but I'm not. So I transcribed the whole thing to note cards, but I didn't have note cards. So I took a bunch of 8.5 by 11 paper, and I made my own note cards, which is about as much of a DIY project as I've done in a long time. And I think there's probably like some sort of a DIY badge for making your own note cards. All right, you can send it to me. Okay, cool. Great. So here's my note cards. Here's my talk. I'm going to be looking at these while I talk to you, because it'll work better that way. I'm a nostalgia fiend. I'm not sure when it started. When I was a little kid, I'd take all the toys systematically from my toy box and lay them out every few months. And when you're a kid, a few months is a few years. Erica, you're also a nostalgia fiend. I know this because we've shared some emails about like collected memories that we had in common of like Little Rascals and stuff like that. I adore the Little Rascals. Little Rascals are the single best artifact of my nostalgic memory. But I'd take the toys out of my toy box and I'd look at them one by one, and I'd like reflect on when in my life they used to be my favorite toy and how I didn't play with them anymore. When you're young, there's not really like a cultural nostalgia so much, because you're not paying attention to culture. You're not paying attention to TV and movies when you're 3. But what you have are these artifacts that embody your memories, which is really interesting, and that sort of stays with you as you grow on, as you go on in your life. My sense of cultural nostalgia, I think I can remember it having developed from largely having been sourced from VH1. Like in the late 90s, early 2000s, when VH1 was doing these like clip shows of like Remember the 70s. I think that was the first one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe Pop-Up Video was at the same time. But they were these clip shows where they'd have talking heads talking about how stupid we were in the 70s, right? And I was born in 78, so I didn't really remember, but it was fun to gather that approximation of a memory for a culture that used to exist but doesn't really anymore. And then something funny happened where like they did another one pretty soon after that, and it was Remember the 80s. And like I was there for the 80s, so I remembered a lot of this stuff, and it was really dumb stuff. Like I remember how dumb that was, and like I realized that the 70s one was all about like, look how dumb our parents were, and then Remember the 80s was like, look how dumb we were when we were kids. Look at all this dumb stuff we like. And then something miraculous happened after that. Is like far too soon after Remember the 80s, they released Remember the 90s. Like, what the hell? Where are they getting all this stuff? Why are the decades happening so fast? You would think that like it would take 10 years after Remember the 80s, but it didn't. So Remember the 90s, well, I was old enough to remember a lot of the dumb stuff that we did in the 90s. Fashions like open, unbuttoned flannel shirts. I didn't plan that joke. I'm just... All right. So what was interesting about Remember the 90s is that it was a memory, a nostalgia for the very recent past. Something that was all still fresh. And I think that remembering the 90s and nostalgia for the 90s happened quicker than any of us were prepared for in a way. Because, like, if somebody were to say, remember 2009, we sort of have a vague sense that there was a 2009 and there were some fashions and styles and things, but you don't really have a collective, like, we weren't all wearing bell-bottoms, in 2009. But 1990, there was definitely in the 90s, there was definitely a thing, and enough of a thing for VH1 to make a show about it. It's like Dawson's Creek and stuff like that. And then something even like stranger happened after Remember the 90s. They did something called Best Week Ever, where it was nostalgia for like the week you were in. Like, what? This is like blowing my mind. How do they even do this? What science and alchemy is this that they're manufacturing all this nostalgia for the time that we're in right now? And I thought it was pretty cool, and it was like funny, and they would get some smart comics to do. Like, I think they paid these comics like $15 total, like to be on TV, and then they would have them comment on stuff that was going on in the news. Well, that was fun, but it was all just, again, it was just relating back to this nostalgia that I personally really appreciated. Because I've always kind of operated with this theory and this special sense that like maybe we don't have fine arts that connect us as a people so much anymore as we used to, but we do have this common popular culture that we all sort of use as a language to relate to each other. So in the sense that defines us as a people, I'm really interested in studying that. I want to know people. I like people, and so I like to speak the common language. So Best Week Ever, we were shortening that cycle of nostalgia so much that we were almost closing the loop of nostalgia. There was no more time to catch up. And like at that point, it was like Best Week Ever didn't last as long because I feel like televised media was almost too long of a gap. And then everything sort of transitioned over to the internet, and we started getting our manufactured nostalgia for the now from the internet, from Tumblr and things like that. And specifically, like, I follow just a ton of these nostalgia type sites, these Tumblrs. First of all is BuzzFeed, which is like nostalgia for the now. BuzzFeed also has like BuzzFeed Rewind, stuff like this. Like anybody that's like, oh, I remember that toy. Oh, I remember that damn Nickelodeon show. Oh, I remember that character on Hey Dude. Like all those fashions that I looked ridiculous in 8th grade. If you get pleasure out of remembering this stuff, then it's plentiful out there. And I'm sure a lot of you probably follow some of that as well. Yeah, another one is I'm Remembering. And then, there's one. There's this, I don't know, you probably all know about this, but Video Time Machine. It was originally called YouTube Time Machine. It's this tool that these guys made that's astoundingly clever. And you basically, they have an app for it. You can, because YouTube is this compendium of all recorded video culture, you just enter a year and say what genre you're looking for, and it'll show you videos that are on YouTube for like, okay, I was born in 1978. I go to 1978 and it shows me an Atari commercial that aired probably when I was like, in short pants. Because I wore short pants. We all were. It was 1978. It's the fashion, short pants. But anyway, all of these forms of nostalgia that collectively could have been called, like, look how stupid we were, right? Look how dumb everything was. We're not that dumb anymore. We're pretty cool now. Like, look what we're wearing, look what we're watching, and look how we used to be so dumb and laugh at ourselves. That stuff's fun for me, like it should be. To the current culmination of that is Twitter, where more so than ever, we're tracking our nostalgia on a real-time basis, and our current stupidity is always being reflected back at us in real time. so that like literally there's no collective memory anymore. It's all in real time, so we don't even know what we were fascinated by last week. I don't know. Like, we were all up in arms about something last week on Twitter. I don't care what it was anymore. So why do we have nostalgia? I ask myself this because I don't want to just be like uselessly fascinated by the past. It seems sort of wasteful. So there must be a reason for it. Why do we have nostalgia? Why do we look back at artifacts from our past? Partially it's that we like to remember where we came from, because that's kind of fun. We look at old pictures in family photo albums. We like to know what we used to look like, what we used to wear. It's just memory is something, is a tool that we have in our toolbox that humans enjoy practicing, using. We like to remind ourselves how stupid we once were. That that we wore embarrassing clothes and had embarrassing fashions and made embarrassing choices on a constant basis, in terms of like what we wore, who we liked, who we dated, who we hung out with, what we believed at the time. It's all fun to like use that as evidence of how we've grown as people. But that's not entirely it. We don't post old photos of ourselves on Instagram just because they're embarrassing and funny, which they are, or because we know that they'll get attention, which they will, and that's fun. It's for another important reason, which I wrote on this next card. We remind ourselves of our past because we're proud of what we were, and we're proud that we made bold choices. And we made bold choices, and we had that specific taste, and we made those decisions that we exhibited because they came from something true, because they reflected who we really were at that point. And it might be a self that we don't recognize anymore, even. But at least they were decisions, and sometimes they were bold decisions and embarrassing decisions, but they reflected who we really were. And we look back and we recognize that we were able to make those choices because we were true to ourselves, and we stuck to those choices at least long enough to be photographed, wearing those choices or whatever. So that's fun. Like, okay, I wore an embarrassing a rayon shirt in my 8th grade yearbook photo that was half black, half floral pattern. And I don't think I wore it a second day after the yearbook photo. But for that one day, that shirt was who I was. And I'm proud of that. I want to find another shirt like it. So there's a tendency to believe that culture has caught up to itself now in this postmodern age, that we've stopped innovating as a culture because everything has already been done or has already been said. And that, to me, that's the most exhausting and boring and depressing concept in the world, because that's thinking like an old person. That's like thinking like there's nothing more to be done. Might as well hang it up. But instead we should be thinking like a young, dumb person who doesn't know any better, who doesn't know that everything has been done before. And you do something that somebody else maybe has done before. Maybe somebody's done this exact talk. Probably thousands of people have done this exact talk. But it's worth saying anyway, because I'm young and dumb. Really, do you think that history will look back on the 20-teens as the time when culture finally got it right? No, of course not. We're really fucked up right now. Look how slim our pants are. Look how dumb our haircuts are. What you want is to always lead the kind of life and make the kind of choices that you look back on and go, what was I thinking? Because that means you made a bold decision. Because this is how innovation happens. Part of this cycle of innovation is that it's always done by those who are young and dumb and hungry. When Steve Jobs famously said, stay hungry, stay foolish, he meant free yourself from the fear that comes from having stuff and losing it. He means be young and stupid. Think like a young person who has nothing, even if you're not young. If you're an older person, think like a young person. Oh, incidentally, Steve Jobs. I always go back and watch this video of Steve Jobs right before he came back to Apple, and I think it was '97. and he goes to talk to the engineering team in an auditorium at Apple. And the man is wearing like faded acid wash jeans with leather patches, black leather patches placed elegantly among the legs. And that's Steve Jobs. That's the world's coolest person. And you go back and you look at Steve Jobs and you look at all these suspect fashion choices that Steve Jobs made. He wore a lot of vests. He wore banded collar shirts, buttoned up at the top. But he made those decisions because he was bold and he stood by them. Am I running out of time?
Good.
I'm good. Good, because I have a lot more apparently. It's easy to fall out of this habit of making bold choices when you start accumulating things like money and family and having overhead and stuff like this. I'm in the tremendously fortunate position of getting to work almost entirely with people that are younger than me, which is amazing. I'm 35, and I think most of the people that I work with are 30 and younger. It really energizes me to be around younger people. I don't feel like I'm older than the people that I work with. I don't feel like the grandpa on staff, and I feel like that's a credit to them. That's a tribute to the people that I work with, that they energize me in that reverse direction, rather than me having to bring them down with my outmoded ideas or my grandpa fashions or something. So my pro tip, I guess, is if you can be around people younger than you, maybe, if you don't have access to younger people in your workplace or something, like, it's fun to follow younger people on Twitter from time to time. When I joined Twitter, I made it a point to accidentally sort of discover people like young comics in high school. I was like a joker in high school. If I had a Twitter account, I probably would have been making dumb jokes on Twitter all the time. Well, now Twitter exists, and they let high school students on it. So those kids say funny stuff, and and they're not yapping about bullshit the way the rest of us adults are as much. I mean, most teens are stupid, let's be honest. But so I follow some of these people on Twitter. I've gotten to Twitter's been around for 6 years now. Holy crap! It's funny to watch these people grow too. Like, relationships we've made with each other over these networks have actually developed into these real. 6 years is a long time to spend knowing somebody. I know some of my friends on the internet probably better than I know some of my family members. So it's fun to watch these people grow and make dumb mistakes just like I did, and learn, and that's kind of awesome. And I get to okay, I already said that part. Oh, I get to watch the people that I work with learn things on a constant basis. That keeps me learning things on a constant basis. Learning is how we stay alive. If you're a senior citizen, you're supposed to do crossword puzzles and to keep your mind agile so that you don't age faster. That's just kind of science, right? I remember being young. I'm a scientist, by the way. So, I remember being young and having my first jobs in my early 20s and thinking, when am I going to stop fucking this up? When am I going to turn into an adult and not fuck up anymore? And not make stupid mistakes and not be yelled at by my boss. And I do remember my first internship, my boss gave me one simple task: take this $17,000 check and walk down the street in Park Slope to the bank and deposit it. Really hard to fuck up. The check fell out of my pocket. So when am I not going to do that anymore? My advice to the young people is, I can't believe I just said that, is not to worry about that so much. You're going to stop fucking up because you get older and you learn and you get experience and you grow and you become an adult, and that solves itself pretty much on its own. You don't even have to do anything, just by virtue of being older and having more experiences. If any of you saw Louis C.K.'s HBO special, the one that just aired, he talks about being older. And if you want to know something, trust the older guy who's a garbage man over the younger person who's like an academic or something, just because the older guy has more experience. There's more world knowledge collected in that brain than there is in the young, arrogant person. I love hearing that out loud from a famous person. It's something that we need to hear more. Being older is great for me, in all honesty. Suddenly, at some point in my probably late 20s, I realized that people start trusting you more. And it seems kind of arbitrary that people start trusting you more and handing you more money. It's weird. And it's just like, okay, like 3 years ago I was 24 and I was making 25 grand a year. And then what, I'm 3 years older and now for some reason you want to pay me more money and you're going to have me tell these other people what to do. I guess so. I don't know. I guess I just didn't fuck up enough times that they give you more trust. That's really fun. And like for young people, that's what happens. It's really cool. Like if I could make a, this is kind of trite to say, but if I could make an It Gets Better video for young people, you know, being in your early 20s sucks. It's almost as bad as being 12 or 13 years old and going through your first bout of that shift in hormones, because you're like fresh out of school and you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, and you feel like you're a unique snowflake, and everybody should finally get the chance to realize this once you graduate. But then like nobody cares so much. So it's a really like it's an upheaval in your mental state, and all I could say is just wait it out. People will start trusting you more when you grow. But that's not the challenge of getting older, not fucking up. The challenge of getting older is this need to avoid becoming irrelevant, which seems to happen. The struggle to stay relevant as you get older. If there's a feeling like you had all your fresh ideas when you were young, because everything was new, it's the challenge to stay relevant, and I think that we do that by sort of staying stupid, not being afraid to fuck up. Humans are naturally prone to hate and fear. Seems kind of dark to write on a note card. We hate and fear the new and what's new and surprising. And the older we are, the more we hate and fear what's new and surprising. It's just our natural tendency. But this isn't just because we're grumpy. It's because all of us experience the new as a shock to our senses. And shock, whether it's positive or negative shock, is destructive, just like a good workout is destructive. It breaks you down a little bit so that you can build yourself back up. Because when we're young, our bodies are meant to withstand a lot of shock. Everything is new, and everything is shocking, and everything is exciting and painful and awesome all the time when you're young. I had my first kid 6 weeks ago. Oh, there you go. Hold for applause. His favorite thing in the world, I discovered, is the thing that he's most entertained by is this dark blue curtain we have hanging in our bedroom. It's a curtain. It's dark blue. He'll stare at it and laugh because it's much darker than the thing is next to it, which is the wall, which is white. And he'll just stare at it, and it blows his mind because he remembers what the world was like before the curtain. Right? He likes contrast. I guess that's his nostalgia. But we as growing people, we get older and we get sick of that shit. The constant shock is actually more annoying than exciting, and it hurts us, and we feel like we don't need that shock anymore because we can't withstand it. So we gravitate towards things that we expect, and we stop growing, and we become irrelevant, and we ruin it for everyone else. One saving grace is that if you maybe find that you're losing your capacity to be stupid and innovate in one area as you grow older, you're probably growing and learning to do other things you never expected you'd be good at. I find that to be true personally. I'm directing less than I used to because I guess I'm not as fresh or hungry anymore, but I'm getting better at running my company, which I'm having a lot of fun with. I guess that's just me growing into an adult. But what I'm saying is that not all hope is lost if you stop innovating in the art form you think you're going to be innovating forever in. There's plenty of ways to learn and grow. But old people who have stopped learning and growing, who have lost the capacity to appreciate the shock of the new, the great thing about them is they eventually die. And their old ideas die, and soon enough gay people can get married just like straight people. So the challenge as we get older, I'm wrapping this up, I promise. So the challenge as we get older, as you get older and I get older and we're all getting older, there's no getting around it, is to remember to keep being stupid. Keep that capacity for shock and keep fucking up and keep making embarrassing choices. It's the only way you'll grow. I wish for all of you that in 10 years' time you'll look back on what you're wearing today and you'll be embarrassed and proud. Some of you look ridiculous. Because eventually what happens is that 10 years becomes 25 or 30, and our kids will look back at pictures of us today on their embedded eyeball displays, and they'll go, oh my God, my parents were so young and hip. Where did they get those incredible slim-fitting space pants? Those would cost like 2,400 space bucks today. I'm going to end this talk with a string of platitudes. Don't stop believing. I believe, like Whitney Houston, that children are our future. The future is now. Therefore, children are now. The future is and will always be, by necessity, every bit as stupid as the past. Past is prologue. Always be stupid.